bedroom, Rem held in her hands what His Highness referred to as a little toy. Along with it, Roland had included a set of instructions: hold both ends of the square frame and practice her abilities. Note, remember to draw the curtains. Rem examined this so-called toy. It was a square frame crafted from copper wire, with a clear spherical glass attached at the top. Upon closer inspection, she could see that the copper wire inside the sphere was replaced by a much thinner metal filament. Scratching her head in confusion, she decided to follow the instructions anyway. After all, it was all in the name of practice. Taking a deep breath, she began to channel her magical powers. At first, nothing seemed odd, but soon, a glimmer of light caught her eye. The filament within the glass sphere had turned into a fine line of yellow light, and its brightness intensified rapidly. In moments, the radiance was so dazzling that Rem could barely believe her eyes. The dark room was illuminated by a soft glow, far brighter than that of any candle she'd ever seen. That is, until a soft pop extinguished the glow, plunging everything back into darkness. Rem was still in shock. In a rush, she hurried into Roland's office. Pushing the door open, she blurted out her question: why did the glass light up? But no matter how she tries now, it doesn't light up. Roland looked surprised as he set down his quill, taking the toy from Rem's hand. He hadn't expected Rem to achieve it so quickly. Roland told Rem that this was a light bulb. Twirling the glass bulb in his fingers, Roland removed it and then started to explain. The lightning Rem harnessed ignites the filament, causing it to emit a continuous light. Bringing the copper wires close together, he reattached the bulb and encouraged her to keep practicing. When Rem returned to her bedroom, Lily was lounging at the head of the bed, reading the textbook titled Fundamentals of Natural Science. Lily hadn't expected Rem to wake up so early and asked her to bring her some breakfast. Rem huffed in response, reaching out to draw the heavy curtains closed, plunging the room into darkness. Confused, Lily inquired what she was up to. To which Rem replied that she was practicing her abilities. Lily rolled her eyes, intending to head to the main hall to continue reading. However, Rem stopped her. With a mischievous smile, Lily teased, asking if Rem is afraid of the dark. Puffing up her cheeks, Rem just wanted someone to be with her. She yearned for someone to witness her progress, and maybe compliment her abilities. And if she failed, at least there was someone to offer some comforting words. But she will never admit these out loud. Upon hearing that Rem intended to harness lightning, Lily swiftly moved closer to the doors, clearly looking anxious. Remembering the past, Rem channeled her magic. Recollections of her time at the camp flashed through her mind. Hakura would certainly condemn her actions every time Rem tries to practice her abilities. Yet the prince, in help with her training, had replaced all iron objects in the room, down to the smallest nail, with copper equivalents. Such experiences in the border town further fueled her desire to be more useful. With these memories stirring within, she found herself quickly tapping into her abilities. Magic leaped from her hands, increasing in both speed and intensity. Then, Rem saw a spark. Then after a brief moment, she distinctly saw the arc of electricity. For the first time, she had witnessed the true extent of her power. Electricity generates magnetism and magnetism generates electricity. She finally understood that's how it worked. She suddenly felt a newfound clarity in her own abilities. The door to Roland's office was suddenly flung open as Rem rushed in, cradling the copper wire frame. Roland opened his eyes just in time to see her place the device on the desk. Even though she wasn't touching the frame, an arc of light persisted at the point where the copper wire was broken. Gazing at this astounding sight, Roland involuntarily dropped his jaw. The quill slipped down tumbling to the ground. What was he witnessing? A system that continues to produce electrical energy without any external source. Roland inquired how Rem had accomplished this. Her eyes shining, she excitedly explained that since Roland had mentioned that electricity and magnetism are intrinsically linked, she wondered if her ability to magnetize objects could also be used to induce electrical current. Roland had mentioned that generating lightning would require changes in magnetic forces. So she experimented by continuously altering the magnetic force she applied to the copper wire. The result was the phenomenon before him. Roland knew better than to measure a witch's abilities using common knowledge. Rem had the power to make magnetism change autonomously without any external interference. What puzzled him was whether Rem had never noticed changes in the magnetism of enchanted objects before. Rem explained that during her time at the Witch Association, she had contemplated allowing an object's magnetism to change at will. She thought of decreasing its magnetic strength when not needed to avoid inconveniencing her fellow sisters. However, it seemed to have no effect. The object's magnetism always remained constant. She believed that her idea was unattainable, so she never tried it again. Roland then turned his gaze to Nightingale, inquiring about the Rem's magic. Nightingale appeared from the mist, smiling as she described it to be like flowing water. Rem's voice quivered with excitement upon hearing this. Roland affectionately patted her head, informing her that her abilities had truly evolved. He commended her, stating that without relentless practice over a long period, one couldn't grasp and ascend their abilities so quickly. She had done incredibly well. Starting from today, Rem would be the sixth witch in the Witches' Union to have evolved abilities. Rem's eyes sparkled as she questioned when she started helping Roland. Roland smiled and replied, there will be countless things, just as he mentioned before. Rem's potential is boundless. However, Roland hopes Rem to take a good rest first. He noted the dark circles under her eyes. Rem nodded vigorously. After Rem left the office, Nightingale immediately closed the door, then locked the door and came over. Instead of going back to the desk or standing by the window as usual, she teleported right next to Roland. Excitedly, she gripped his shoulders, bending slightly so her golden hair tickled his face. As Roland gazed into her dewy eyes and soft red lips, his heart raced. Is she thinking of right here, right now? In broad daylight? Nightingale's next words caught him off guard. She wanted Roland to tell her a method to evolve her abilities without understanding the textbooks. She knew that Rem probably didn't understand the contents of the book either, but she still evolved a new ability. Nightingale inquired about what she should do, asking if she needed to practice with toys too. The direction the conversation took was slightly disappointing for Roland. Clearing his throat, Roland explained that it might be challenging for Nightingale's ability to evolve just by practicing. According to Agatha, one would need to witness a phenomenon related to their ability in reality to trigger an evolution. Nightingale's ability is too mystical. Roland doesn't fully understand its principles, let alone guide her in understanding it. Roland said. To consolidate her magic, Nightingale may have to master all of the scientific knowledge, including advanced mathematics. Nightingale's face became fairly disappointed at his words. She slowly walked backward and leaned back in disappointment. After Rem had rested, Roland conducted a comprehensive test on her new ability. He named it Indeterminate Magnetism. Like her previous ability to bestow magnetism, it could be attached to any object and followed the cycle of the magic infused at the time of enchantment. However, for insulators, there was virtually no electrical effect. Moreover, among the evolved witches, Rem's magical energy ranked the lowest, only lighting up 2 stones on the divine emblem. After a series of tests, he found that Rem's new power was relatively stable when used as a battery. However, it was nowhere near sufficient to drive large motors or match the power of a steam engine. Despite this, Roland did not reveal these findings to Rem and instead encouraged her to continue honing her new abilities. After the tests, Roland rewarded Rem and Nightingale with the latest chocolate cake to share. Furthermore, Roland recalled Agatha's mention of a method involving multiple witches injecting their magic power into magic stones. If there was a witch who could manipulate or transfer magical energy, it would bypass Rem's limitation of insufficient magic. During the evening, he sought out Tilly. Tilly confirmed that no one on the slumbering isle possessed such abilities. However, she knew
Welcome, seeker of wisdom, to the realm of Thoft. I am Thoft.
However, she knew where he could find someone. Tilly introduced a witch. Her name is Spear Percy. She possesses the ability known as the Magic Channel, which allows her to link the magical energy of several witches. She resides at Dragonfall Ridge. Not only is she a marquis, but she is also the Lord of Dragonfall Ridge. Tilly went on to explain her father, the former Lord Percy, bequeathed all of his titles and lands to her, rather than to his second or third sons. Due to her high status, she had managed to conceal her identity and has lived a much more comfortable life than most witches. During the Great Migration, she took the initiative to assist Tilly, which greatly sped up the process of gathering witches from the towns in the southern part of the kingdom. Roland sensed something was off. Why didn't she shelter her fellow witches? Tilly shook her head. Spear Percy hoped the witches would leave her territory promptly to avoid persecution by the church. To the marquis, her position as a lord is paramount. If the church discovers that a lord is harboring witches, her position would undoubtedly be in danger. During their conversation, Spear had once told Tilly that if witches are captured by commoners, she'll try to replace them in prison with other death row inmates and then smuggle them out of her territory. But if they're caught by the judgment army or by the church, she'll likely turn a blind eye. Roland wasn't sure if they could persuade her to come to Border Town. Tilly wasn't very hopeful either, but thought it was worth a shot. Roland decided to send a messenger to discuss it with her, with Nightingale undoubtedly being the best choice. Suddenly, Tilly mentioned that another witch had evolved their ability in the castle. Roland nodded and briefly described the process of Rem's evolution. He hypothesized that the witch's power was the specific manifestation of magic, not a naturally occurring phenomenon. They conversed for a while until Tilly abruptly asked if Roland comes from a world without magic. Taken aback, Roland almost spat out his tea and questioned her meaning. Tilly explained that she had read all the books Roland had written over the past month, and something felt off. Roland had consistently excluded magic from nature. Every textbook failed to mention the concept of magic. Yet, Tilly asserted that magic was an intrinsic part of nature, causing Roland to be stunned. He suddenly realized that he had forgotten he was interacting with someone from a world where magic was a natural phenomenon. He had inadvertently placed magic in opposition to natural occurrences and took such a stance for granted. Roland felt at a loss for words. He knew Tilly was no ordinary witch. Besides being his sister, she was also an extraordinary witch. Within just a month, Tilly had read all the books Roland had written and keenly noticed this inconsistency. During the awkward silence, Tilly spoke again, her voice much gentler this time. She wasn't in a rush to hear an answer from Roland and decided to rest for the night, suggesting Roland do the same. As she was leaving, Roland watched her, momentarily forgetting even to stand to bid her goodbye. At the door of his office, Tilly paused and looked back, questioning, "Can I trust you?" Usually, Roland would have confidently said yes, but at that moment, he hesitated. In the end, he could only give a slow nod. Nightingale suddenly appeared, remarking in surprise that Tilly had left without getting a response from Roland. Roland gave her an irritated look. Nightingale had a look of regret, casually sticking out her tongue and saying, if Tilly had pressed Roland a little more, she might have known about his real origin. Roland sighed deeply, knowing Tilly did not want to strain their relationship by pushing too much. Leaning back in his chair, Roland felt a chill run down his spine. Tilly's behavior was impeccable. In the face of the present dangers, trust in an ally was more crucial than learning their true identity. That's why Tilly posed her questions and chose to depart, giving both of them some breathing space. But it didn't mean she didn't need answers. If Roland continued to evade, once the external threat was dealt with, their trust could still be lost. Yet Roland wasn't ready to reveal everything to Tilly, unsure of how she truly felt about him. Shaking off these worrisome thoughts, Roland turned to Nightingale and asked if she, along with Maisie and Lightning, could investigate the situation in Dragonfall Ridge. Nightingale agreed without hesitation. However, Roland continued, while holding her hands expressing his concerns for her safety. Nightingale's voice became slightly soft as her face started to blush, but she reassured Roland to not worry. Even if she has to tie the marquis up and bring her here, she will manage. Roland rapped on his desk, saying that was exactly what he was worried about. He does not want Nightingale to kidnap her to Border Town. If she did that, the marquis would be so angry. Roland told Nightingale to not act recklessly. First, he wanted Nightingale to gather information and then find an opportunity to meet with Spear Percy. If she refuses, it's okay. Do not threaten her. That's it? Nightingale sounded disappointed. Furthermore, Roland needs Nightingale and Lightning to scout the surroundings of Dragonfall Ridge, note down the city's defenses, patrol teams, and garrison deployments, and then return as soon as possible. Nightingale muttered a response of acknowledgement. Finally, Roland said, pausing for emphasis, remember, their safety is most important. Soon, the three witches set off on their journey. Roland worked tirelessly to record his knowledge. Roland hoped that Scroll could transform the Book of Magic into a storybook, just any story that Anna hadn't read before. Suddenly, Scroll remembered that tomorrow would be Anna's awakening day. The following evening, sitting by the bed, Roland felt as if he was trapped in a dream. It seemed as though he wasn't in the outdated age of monarchs nor a modern society filled with electronics, but rather in a childhood that was sandwiched between the two. Thinking about this, he couldn't help but look at the girl seated beside the bed. She was flipping through a storybook, but what stood out the most were her sapphire-like eyes. At some point, Roland realized she had put down the book and was tilting her head, looking at him curiously. She asked if he was watching her. Instinctively, he averted his gaze, only to return it moments later, admitting that he was. After a year of being together, they had become very familiar with each other. They locked eyes for a moment and then broke into simultaneous laughter. Anna wondered aloud if her request was too capricious. Everyone cared about her and wanted to be on her side, but she pushed away those who cared about her. Roland reassured her that it wasn't. And everyone understands her decision. Blushing, Anna admitted that if Agatha hadn't mentioned those ancient methods, she wouldn't have made such a request. However, in the future, the other sisters would likely follow suit, and then Roland would truly have his hands full. With a wry smile, Roland said, most of their requests would mostly be about wanting more ice cream sandwiches. Upon learning that Anna's awakening day was approaching, Agatha immediately shared her experiences from the Federation. According to Federation research, for witches undergoing awakening or maturing, apart from needing to empty their magic to minimize backlash, their emotional state is also crucial. Positive emotions like joy and satisfaction can greatly enhance their success. Thus, for powerful witches, the Federation might even assign people specifically to meet their requests during this transition. After Anna learned about this, her sole request was for Roland to accompany her on her awakening day. With Roland on her side, made her extremely happy. Faced with her earnest look, even Roland felt a little embarrassed. On impulse, he took out a book, declaring it a gift for her awakening day. He had painstakingly tried to transfer the knowledge about calculus and advanced mathematics, all for this significant moment. To a witch, the awakening day held more importance than even a birthday, representing a second rebirth. Anna was very happy about her gift. But when she took the book, she didn't open it immediately as usual. Instead, she placed it beside the storybook, murmuring her thanks. Suddenly, Anna stood up, coming closer to Roland, saying she wanted to hear something special. A thought crossed Roland's mind. The last time he'd shared a story, Anna had drifted to sleep before he could finish. Anna wanted to hear the rest. Back then, Roland had spoken of living in a vast city, but he wasn't referring to the great castle capital. In a soft voice, Anna said she knew. Unexpectedly, she pushed Roland gently. Looked into Roland's eyes. Anna understood that it wasn't easy for him to speak of certain things. But if that was the case, he didn't have to. As she leaned against him, she felt certain she wasn't the only one who felt this way. The closer everyone was to Roland, the more they felt that Roland was unlike anyone else. Playfully, Anna suggested a wager. She believed she could guess a lot about him. She'd record her speculations in a notebook. When the time came that Roland no longer hesitated and wished to share, they could see how much she had guessed right. He didn't ask what the bet entailed, winning or losing held no significance between them. Anna probably proposed this more to comfort Roland than to genuinely want to bet. Among all the witches, Anna was the one who understood and resonated with his thoughts the most. He nodded in agreement. The three witches, donning the special wind-resistant coats that His Highness had provided them before their departure, arrived at their destination. After ensuring that Lightning and Maisie had entered the city with her, Nightingale headed straight for the castle. Seated at a desk, the Marquise danced across the parchment, seemingly engrossed in her writing. She suddenly looked up, questioning who was there. Nightingale revealed herself, bowing respectfully. "Who might you be?" The Marquis inquired again. Nightingale introduced herself as a witch from the border town. Trying to keep her composure, the Marquis's hand subtly slid towards her sleeve, asking why she didn't knock on the door. Nightingale replied with a soft chuckle. If she had knocked, she would have been greeted by the guards instead of the Marquis. She doesn't intend to harm the Marquis, so there's no need for the hidden crossbow in her sleeve.
Oh. Yeah.
The Marquis, taken aback, withdrew her hand and folded her arms defensively across her chest. Nightingale is here to relay a message from Roland, the fourth Prince of Grey Castle, explaining that he had established a new order in the western region where witches could coexist with ordinary people. He hoped that the Marquis could aid him in the border town. Upon hearing it was the fourth prince, the Marquis suddenly recalled the often ridiculed and deemed incompetent prince. A look of disbelief crossed her face. She thought Nightingale was lying. The Lord of Border Town was nothing but a rebel prince exiled to some desolate place. Nightingale promptly corrected her, stating that it was Timothy who was the real usurper. Moreover, it wouldn't be long before Prince Roland would reclaim his rightful throne. But that wasn't the main point. All Nightingale wished for the Marquis's assistance with her magical channel ability in the border town. The Marquis remained silent for a moment before finally asking if this was a threat or an invitation. Nightingale shrugged. Obviously it's an invitation. His Highness does not believe in coercing any witch. In fact, she herself dislikes that approach too. Without hesitation, the Marquis declined. She believed that if Roland truly needed her help, he should have visited her with the manners befitting a noble, instead of having people sneaking into her castle. Nightingale acknowledged the response. She gave the Marquis a gentle nod, then she put on her hood, bowed, and prepared to leave. The Marquis looked genuinely surprised. Nightingale replied that she had delivered the message and received a response. Her mission is now completed. She smiled and asked if the Marquis was hoping that Nightingale would kidnap her. The Marquis hesitated before inquiring, how did Nightingale know about her abilities? Did she have contact with the witches who went to the fjords? Nightingale responded by saying that her speculation was correct. Tilly Wimbledon is currently in Border Town with her brother, aiding His Highness in the month of the demons. It was Tilly who informed His Highness about Spear Percy and her abilities. The Marquis poured a cup of tea and handed it over, then asked, is it really true that the fourth prince has established a system in his territory where witches and commoners coexist? Nightingale explained with a smile, not only that, Roland had expelled the church's influence from his territory. Currently, over a dozen witches live in Border Town, and the townspeople accept them as a part of daily life. The Marquis handed Nightingale another cup of tea, wanting to hear more. Nightingale smiled, prepared to discuss the creation of the Witch Union by His Highness, the war with Duke Ryan, and the governance after reclaiming Chengdu stronghold. Suddenly, there was an urgent knock at the window. Nightingale opened it to find Maisie crouched outside. Lightning discovered something unusual. A force from the Judgment Army is rushing towards the castle, reported the pigeon, flapping its wings. And saying there are at least 20 of them. Nightingale asked if they were here to meet with the Marquis. In which the Marquis responded she hadn't scheduled any appointments with the church that day. Nightingale advised her to hide or have her personal guards intercept them outside the castle to ascertain their intentions. Before she could finish, chaotic footsteps echoed from below the castle, and the clashing of sword sounds became more and more clear. The Marquis's expression shifted as she loudly summoned her guards. Nightingale once again urged the Marquis to leave, vowing to protect her. But the Marquis refused, declaring, this is her territory. Before the words fully left her lips, the door was violently pushed open. A group of fully armed judgment knights stormed in, their swords raised as they surrounded the Marquis. At the same time, Nightingale melded into the mist, noticing that these knights carried God's punishment stones. Through the window, she observed the two little girls, Maisie and Lightning, hiding nearby instead of fleeing. Suddenly, an angry rebuke erupted from the Marquis. Questioning a man named Redwin, has he lost his mind? How dare he bring them into her castle? A man's voice emerged from the crowd of knights, saying father was mistaken in passing the title to a minion of the demon. He is merely correcting his error. The Marquis looked at her younger brother in disbelief. This is a blatant fabrication. Redwin retorted loudly, the high priest will make his judgment. Father might be deceived, but others won't be. The Marquis's tone shifted. She questioned who was behind all this because there was no way that Redwin could come up with this story on his own. After all, her father chose her not for any reason other than the fact that Redwin and their younger brother are utterly useless. The man yelled, telling her to shut up. Following his outburst, Nightingale heard a sharp slap and the Marquis's painful grunt. A priest from behind told Redwin, until the trial, Spear Percy remains a noble. He should treat her with proper manners. After the Marquis was taken away, the room was left with just two men, Redwin and the priest. The priest informed Redwin that he would soon take over the Dragonfall Ridge and become the new lord. The priest mentioned that Spear Percy would soon be hanged in the square as a witch. He suggested that Redwin gather her ministers, knights, and subordinates to inform them of the matter. By reallocating some of the Marquis's privileges and treasury among them, his position would be further consolidated. The two men laughed heartily. Only after the two left did Nightingale appear from the mist. Lightning and Maisie descended after her. The two young girls declared their intention to rescue the Marquis and then crush the church entirely. Nightingale shook her head. Ever since they defeated the two demons, the confidence of these little ladies had inflated quite a bit. This was a sign that wasn't necessarily good. Nightingale disagreed, saying that they couldn't confront the church just yet. She hoped to discreetly rescue the Marquis so that she might agree to accompany them to the border town. Combat was too risky, with the enemy greatly outnumbering them, and all of them wielding Stone of God punishments. Nightingale told the two girls to hide, while she decided to first gather more information.